Welcome to the Law Society Gazette podcast, unpacking what matters most across the legal profession.
Hello and welcome to the Law Society Gazette podcast. I'm Paul Rogerson, Editor-in-Chief of the Gazette. Today we're going to talk about the incursion of private equity investment into the legal sector. Private equity has invested over £1 billion in legal services over the last few years. Regional firms, personal injury specialists, family law practices and legal platforms are consolidating. Yet the long-predicted breakthrough into the upper reaches, the top 100, hasn't really happened. So what are we watching? Is it a revolution? It is a bubble? Or is it just the new normal? I'm delighted to be joined today by someone who really knows the answer to those questions. Jeff Zindani is founder and managing director of Acquirer Professional Services, which has been active in the field of M&As for law firms since 2004. Jeff advises both city-type practices and boutique law firms. I should also say that he produces an excellent periodic review of M&A activity in the UK legal market, which is very useful for journalists. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Paul. Delighted to be on your podcast.
Also joining me is Michael Cross, the Gazette's news editor. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Paul.
So let's begin at the beginning. Jeff, how far has private equity actually penetrated into the legal market? We hear an awful lot about it. Who's affected? Where's the money going?
Okay, a few questions there. First of all, I think it's probably fair to say that it's significant, but probably not as significant as many of your readers or listeners think it is. Okay, so I think what we probably need to do is to go back in time a bit and try and work out where we are now by looking back at the incursions, as you've put them. I think it's right to say that it's only really been the past few years, past 4 or 5 years, that we've seen significant investments. So I suppose in that sense, it tells us really a little bit about why the legal sector is perhaps behind other professional services, particularly the accountancy profession, who are probably a couple of years ahead. In terms of what they're investing in, I suppose the question is, what is an investable law firm? And that has clearly occupied a lot of time and money as far as investors are concerned, and also law firm partners and boards. Because the big question is, are we going to put our money into a law firm? And why would we put our money into a law firm unless we're going to get a return?
Yeah.
And I think that's really where it kind of starts.
So which practice areas have they initially been attracted to and why?
Okay, we can see that clearly from the data. And I think probably you see this sometimes, Paul, in terms of what you cover. Lawyers don't always like data. But when you start looking at it, it's fascinating. The investments have been around scalable, repeatable types of law businesses. And classically there, we're talking about personal injury, family type work. And when it comes to personal injury, it's been quite remarkable in terms of what's happened.
Commoditized services, you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I used to be a equity partner at Russ Jones Walker, Slater Gordon. I think that was one of the first, I think it was the world's first listed law firms. I might be wrong actually there, but I'm pretty sure it was. We're going back a long time now. But yeah, very process-driven type of work. And perhaps it's, again, just to give an example, when you have a private equity house on the shores of Lake Geneva acquiring a personal injury firm in Manchester. Obviously, Manchester's topical now, but
very fashionable as well.
Yes, apparently so. When that happens, you know something has clearly changed. But it obviously wasn't just Express Solicitors. We've got Fletchers. So it's those commoditized law firms that clearly have been on the radar.
So what does private equity see in these businesses that they are better able to exploit than, say, a traditional partnership might be?
Again, I think sort of non-lawyers won't. Non-lawyers will obviously understand this better. They provide these sort of leadership sort of skills, which I think at times isn't always as strong as it should be in the legal sector. But on the resource side, what I think you're seeing, and it's clearly relevant to tech, it's the technology and investment they can make, and the ability, I think, to look at long-term strategy rather than short-term sort of LLP profits being extracted. So it's more of a patient game, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Paul? That's what it is.
But it's a cliche, but it's true to say law firms are people businesses, aren't they? They're not factories. So what decisions are partners making? Is it about succession planning? You've mentioned technology there. I guess we have to touch on AI. Are they thinking to themselves, well, we just don't have enough money to take our business to the next level without this kind of expertise, this insight, this investment?
Yeah, I think you're seeing that in terms of tech being viewed almost like an arms race, really. There's no doubt about that. But PE is very selective, and there are still obviously firms that are not going to be interested in taking that sort of investment from, because they are quite happy to carry on as they are, really.
Yeah, they're doing well. I mean, obviously, but biased towards the top of the sector, but surveys into the performance of law firms more generally continue to suggest that law firms that are not obviously dependent on public funding are doing perfectly well, thank you. So sometimes we look at it and think, well, why would they do this with obviously the risk that they lose control? And private equity, we have to admit, doesn't always have the best reputation, does it?
Well, that's it. I think, again, if you asked me a few years ago, I'd probably be much more almost cynical about PE. Yeah. Although I'm not a cheerleader at the same time. My view is that if it's done properly in certain sectors, I think it can help law firms. But the biggest issue is, I suppose it's almost a question related to what you've just said, is why PE hasn't been successful. There's been a lot of, I mean, you've covered it in the Gazette, and there's always been that kind of gold rush mentality, isn't there, really, at times? You know, private equity is coming and it's all going to be, and I could give you some stories if you want me to at some point about some of the conversations I've had on obviously no names basis.
No.
But, you know, some firms, frankly, are delusional. They think they're just going to be bought up by some, you know, big PE house. It's just not going to happen, you know, and that's the reality.
Why are they delusional? They're just not making enough money.
Well, I think they think that their firm is the type of firm that will actually be acquired. But one of the fundamental issues that I've seen is around LLPs, Paul, and corporate businesses. Because, again, let me just give you an example. I had a conversation with a sort of top 200 law firm. We're very profitable, Jeff. We're doing really, really well. Fine, okay. But you're an LLP. Once you actually move into a corporate structure, you then need salaries, don't you? So the profits go and they're replaced by salaries. So when you do that, and you know,
the partner profits are replaced by senior managers' salaries.
Exactly.
So suddenly the margins don't look so good.
Exactly. So I've called them sort of phantom EBITDAs, really. You know, the sort of earnings-related type of formulas.
Earnings before interest, tax, depreciation, amortization.
That's the...
Which when I was a city journalist, we were taught to be extremely skeptical about, because it was taking out all the costs. And but that's sort of meat and drink, isn't it, for investors? That's how they go about it. Sure. They'll look at an EBITDA and they'll look at a multiple. But when you actually look at an LLP, there isn't really much left. So there's nothing to invest in, actually. And as I said, I kind of use the term a phantom EBITDA because they think it exists. So when I mention delusional,
not being too unkind, but I think it's numbers and lawyers, spreadsheets and lawyers don't always go well together, really. And that's it. So, yeah.
So we touched on technology. Michael, law firms and artificial intelligence, it can be hard for us as journalists to sort the wheat from the chaff, really. We're bombarded with information about investment. What are the trends in AI investment? It's not a market that's settled, is it?
Well, clearly not. We've been living in a bit of a funny world where people assume they can get this technology essentially for free, and they can dabble, develop their own systems. Clearly, that's not a great use of lawyers' time, no matter how much they might be enthusiastic about it. I guess the problem with AI is a problem I'd raise, a wider problem about PE investment is clearly the investors. Jeff, you talked about long term, but clearly they need to have an exit strategy. They need to have something to sell down the line. And I wonder if we're yet seeing a poster child, a success story of a firm that's managed to invest with PE leverage to do something that it wasn't able to do before.
Transformational.
Transformed, become more profitable, and therefore to be sold on as at a premium. Have we yet seen that?
We have. I thought you'd ask me that question. Yeah, I suppose the sort of showcase, I don't know, poster sort of chart, but definitely the showcase is Stowe Family Law. Yeah. So again, let's just go back in time. I think into 1980s, a small regional family firm, Stowe in Leeds. I think they actually grew a bit. Then a few years ago, took in private equity.
High net worth divorces, I think, weren't they?
Were they? Oh, okay.
Run by Marilyn Stowe, who was quite a formidable figure in the profession.
Yeah.
Retired and sold out.
A real reputation, I think.
Yeah.
And anyway, Living Bridge.
Yeah.
Put obviously some money into the business, grew fairly rapidly. I think, was it last year before, we then had a Middle Eastern PE investor acquiring the firm from Living Bridge. So we actually saw an exit. And that's the important thing, because if we go back to what PE is, their strategy, of course, is to sell, and it involves an exit. So we've now seen it a secondary exit. So
was that PE buying PE though?
Yeah,
it was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What's the typical timeline that PE would look at? We're sort of told in other sectors 5 or 6 years, aren't we? Or is that?
Yeah, in terms of what the exit period is.
Yeah.
I think we spent a lot of time, I think, earlier on in the year looking at some of the difficulties with some of the firms that have already been acquired. Okay. And we think it's minimum 5, 6, 7 years. We've got on the other side an example with Fletcher Solicitors, who were acquired by Sun Capital in the US, now Sun European Capital, as a PI firm. And they haven't exited, but I think they've had some type of extension of a sort.
Yes.
And that's becoming quite common. So it's, but I think 5, 6 years is minimum, isn't it?
Right. So we're probably not there yet in terms of seeing a whole slew of these exits, are we?
No, and I think it's the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be open about it. That's where the real...
it's a fascinating bit, isn't it? Where to whom are they going to sell their stakes and for how much is...
When the music stops.
Yes.
Yeah. Or when the AI really starts. Maybe that's when it becomes even more controversial, doesn't it?
I wonder if investors are also having a look at the political climate at the moment. I mean, to a new government with big spending plans, desperately looking for new tax takes to stick to its manifesto promises. Clearly, law firm, there's been a great deal of talk about a levy or a windfall tax on law firm partner profits, or just straight up taxing LLP drawings as income.
And also, Michael, we had the story, I think it was a Sunday Times. If I've named the wrong paper, I apologize. Speculating that the interest, the government's plans to seize interest on client account might have scuppered a private equity buy-in because they were spooked by it. They thought, oh, well, if they're going to take all the interest you earn on client money, we might not buy into you.
To me, this all makes the law firms as an asset class look a bit more dicey than, say, 3 years ago.
It does, because they're looking not just at scalability, but stability. Yeah, that's the reality. And what they're looking at is almost boringly sort of profitable businesses. And obviously, if there are hands of government around, then it will spook them. And I think it has. I don't know if that's the case with Taylor Rose, by the way. I think probably certain sectors which are vulnerable. Personal injury is a good one, isn't it? I mean, look at the way fixed costs have affected that industry. Could we see more of that going
on the
forward?
way? Yeah, possibly.
So yeah, I think it's a good point.
And the story of consolidated firms in that sector has not necessarily been a happy one, and in some cases extremely unhappy.
Yeah. I think there's also a danger of actually sort of, I suppose, tarnishing certain kind of businesses, with the same brush, when Axiom is not the same as, for example, Stowe. Clearly it's not. It's a great story.
Yeah.
And I think some people need to look at these things, don't they, a bit more carefully.
Clearly, we can't talk about ongoing litigation, but we've also had this extraordinary story of the law front and Slater Heelis, where with the owners.
So that's the private equity firm suing the former partners, alleging that claims of profitability were exaggerated, which the partners vehemently deny. I should add, I don't know where it's going from there, but obviously an interesting development.
Yeah, I think to some extent, again, there's a real danger here, isn't there, when some of your readers, listeners will go, oh, there we are. I told you so. And what's interesting, obviously, it's litigation, isn't it? That's the point. Is it simply buyer's remorse? Okay. Or is it simply just a question of trying to work out, a bit like my old firm, Russell Jones and Slater Gordon, really, in terms of due diligence, what happened?
Yeah.
Because I think it focuses largely on something which is a bit technical, but sort of valuation of work in progress, really, which is a common problem with M&A deals. So, but they've done 7 deals. I mean, let's be open about it. Successful deals. So there's bound to be issues.
Friction. Yeah. It's sort of inevitable.
I mean, M&A is a contact sport, isn't it? That's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I was struck by one figure in that your excellent regular update on the M&A market, Jeff, which is that of over 160 law firm deals in 2025, I think it was, only 14 actually involved private equity. So it's not as if law firm M&A has suddenly become a story of PE, is it? It's still very much a minority sport.
I think you're right. And again, when you look at the data, it's quite revealing, isn't it? Because the real activity is around regional platform type firms who are acquiring smaller practices. And it's going on in a really sort of, I don't know, kind of under the radar, sort of gentle way. Yeah. But it's going at a pace which is very different. So the story almost isn't about consolidation. It's really about that strategy, that kind of regional platform strategy. And in a sense, it's not the exciting stuff, is it? PE is always exciting, but just to kind of link it to something else as well, not to, as I said, where the real activity, in my view, is with smaller firms. We then got the transatlantic mergers, okay? Only mentioning it, cross-referencing it to the value of PE. If you look at, and I have done recently, 3 or 4 large transatlantic mergers, dollars about $10 billion. Just think about that in terms of revenue. So you compare that with PE, it's very different. And I suppose then it's the question of why haven't they broken through? Why haven't they broken through, Jeff? Why aren't they in the corporate sort of sector?
Thank you. And what's the answer to that? I mean, we look at the corporate results sector, which is obviously well underway this year. And why on earth would you want to sell a stake when you're making all that money? I think.
Yeah. But if you're one of those sort of older partners, Paul, who've worked so hard over the years, given the tax environment we've got, it might be a time to cash out, of course.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if you look at some of the reasons, they failed, frankly. I mean, that's it. That's the position. They failed in terms of breaking into the top sort of 50, top 100 law firms.
The PE investors.
They have.
And have they tried?
Of course they have.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I would put I'm not a betting man anymore, but I'd certainly put a lot of money on nearly every firm, top 200 firms, lawyer list, having been approached by a PE house or investor or a family office. But I think, to me, it's not particularly complicated. I mean, I mentioned about some of the earnings issues, but also remember, unlike accountancy firms, the asset base is mobile, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's the point. Is what are you actually buying? Is it a case of back in the days when banks thought they were buying up estate agencies and found themselves spending a huge amount of money on a bit of high street real estate?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about what kind of business, not many businesses exist like this, where on a Friday, your main asset base could just leave the building, a partner with a head, with a group of really good lawyers could just say, right, we're not coming in again. We've been snapped up or something's happened. I mean,
lateral hires of teams between firms and devastate the bottom line.
Yeah, or we're just going, we've had enough, or whatever the reason is. So it's that. If you think about it, it's very unstable, that asset base. But when you look at those scalable, repeatable businesses, do you really need equity partners? It's questionable, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's very questionable. Yeah. Do you see this taking off in the US? We've had stories of a large personal injury firm in the US taking private equity money through a sort of structuring model that has to get around all the restrictions there are on external ownership.
Yeah, I mean, we're into obviously regulatory sort of issues, which, if I'm honest with you, I'm not particularly au fait on, but I think I've probably seen enough to realise that they've been looking. I mean, this isn't just PI firms; it's other firms, and this has been going on for at least a couple of years, I think. But I actually think it's probably going to be potentially more effective here in the UK with these sorts of platform managed service organisations providing all the tech and everything else. So yeah, maybe that's where the action could be. But you only need one or two big firms in the US for this to happen. For it to be lawful, obviously, it's got to be through the regulators' approval.
Because it's so fascinating that this particular market is a sort of crucible, isn't it, for market forces in a profession. It just doesn't happen anywhere else, really.
No, it doesn't. And I was reflecting this morning, actually. It's quite weird because when I was an article clerk, I used to see on the headed notepaper movements. I think I was mad actually at the time, looking at headed notepaper all the time. But you'd see partners become consultants. And what used to happen, of course, was that they'd have capital accounts. So that capital account, obviously, on retirement, would be taken out, wouldn't it, Paul? That was what was happening, and it still is happening. So what we've now got is a capital shift, isn't it? Where because of liberalisation in the marketplace, law firms can say now we can actually cash in our chips. We've got capital here. Yeah. And I think that's the interesting bit, isn't it? The shift in capital, isn't it?
It is. Also, like to touch on briefly, and you raised this as a sort of case study of a fascinating firm, is Knights, which is obviously listed on the stock exchange, expanding very quickly, but actually producing decent results along the way, and very, very much upfront about we want to clear out unnecessary costs, and we're going to do that very quickly. That's an interesting model, you think?
I think there's always the danger of sometimes people being overcritical. I think they've actually been given sometimes a pretty bad press. But let's face it, those firms who've been acquired and they're quite open about this. They're required, aren't they?
Yes.
Their integration approach is pretty direct, pretty brutal, if I can say that. But the partners know what they're signing up for, don't they? But from my perspective, there are certain firms who I've dealt with probably wouldn't culturally be comfortable. And I think it's this cultural issue again, which is PE or big firm related, isn't it? Why would we want to join a bigger firm when culturally we don't feel comfortable?
Okay. Let me just sort of draw to a conclusion then. What does the profession look like structurally in, it's almost like an interview question, isn't it? In 10 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, what's going to change? I assume we're going to see some PE cash outs. We're probably also going to see some more significant investments. Do you see it as just sort of incremental? There's no major revolution going on?
I suppose the older you get, the more you realise that it is evolution rather than revolution. I think this consolidation process has increased rapidly, and I think the market is being re-engineered, Paul. Okay, and I think you'll see less.
That's a big statement.
Yeah. I think there's going to be less of the smaller practices around. There may still be boutique.
Sort of polarization, because we've seen a lot of the sole practitioners disappear, sort of weighed down by compliance and so on.
Particularly on the tech side, but I definitely think there'll be the boutique firms leaving big law for some of the reasons do what they do. But I think you'll see less of the smaller practices. Will it go the way the high street has already gone? Who knows? Who knows?
Not too many empty shops, I hope.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Jeff. That was really interesting. I think we could probably stop there unless there's anything else you want to say.
Absolute pleasure,
Paul. We covered
Paul.
it very nicely.
And you, Michael, real pleasure. Cheers.
Can I just give one more wrap?
That's probably a good point at which to wrap up, actually. It will all come out in the wash. As they say, it will be fascinating to see how private equity evolves in the law over the next 3 to 5 years, certainly. Great to see you, and join us again next time.
Absolute pleasure, Paul.
Thank you.